What's up everyone, Sio here with week 3 of the NES. This week we are taking on Super Nerd 92, coach of the Seattle Sigilyphs. I'll be leaving a link for his side of the battle down below because he is one of the few coaches that actually keeps up with post-coms and stuff also. So highly recommend checking him out. He's really good about it also, so please do that. We are facing an uphill battle this week, to say the least. Nerd is 2-0 and I'm 0-2, and we're basically kind of having opposite starts of the season. His team is super scary because he has a very, very good sand core. He mixed it up a little bit after this week and dropped Miltank for Umbreon and Guzzlord for something that I'm spacing on right now. But basically, his team's super good and I have to be really careful about it. So I decided to just kind of go into this week with trying to build a fun team that he may not expect and just kind of seeing what happens, because honestly the beginning of the season hasn't really been super great for me. So just gonna go ahead and take it back to kind of having fun with this, I guess. First off, we have Expert Belt Analytic Starmie. Reflect type is going to be an interesting gimmick if I'm able to get it off, where the user becomes the same type as the target. So for example, if I was able to predict Comfey coming in and I used Reflect type, I would change from a Water Psychic type into a Fairy type, which could be interesting for itself. Like for example, if you bring Comfey Guzzlord and I manage to kill Comfey and then he's it with Guzzlord against me and suddenly I'm not weak to him but I'm actually 4 times super effective to him, that might be kind of cool. Reflect type's more defensive usage in this game, at least from my practice with it, but it might just be cool to kind of catch him off guard and change my typing around and then just be able to have very good coverage for his team actually with Surf, Grass Knot, and Psychic. I was pretty close to just making this a full-on offensive Starmie and just running Ice Beam or something over Reflect type, but honestly I kind of wanted, like I said, to have a little bit more fun this week. You never really see Reflect type Starmie, so I figured I might as well bring it. If it doesn't end up doing anything, it doesn't end up doing anything, but at least it's there. And these 3 moves honestly hit a majority of his team anyway. Next up is a pretty standard Verathorn, honestly, just max defense, Gyro Ball, Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Protect. This is basically just meant, as you can kind of figure, to spike stack. Nerd's hazard removal outside of Excadrill isn't the greatest, and I know he doesn't really like running hazard removal on Excadrill. Now that I said that, he probably will, but knowing that and knowing that basically everything on his team but Landorus and Moltres are grounded, spikes actually come in pretty handy. Rocks are basically just there for that Moltres. If I don't see Moltres there, I'm probably not even going to really set up rocks, especially if he doesn't bring Moltres or Galvantula. Outside of another 12%, it doesn't really do that much to most of his team, but spikes will definitely come in handy, and then leftovers is just to get recovery while I protect up. An added benefit of this week is because he does have a sand core, Verathorn can actually just sit in and recover while the sand is out and kind of stall out turns a little bit while just getting health back, which is kind of nice. Next up, making the season debut, I couldn't think of a nickname for Golbat, so I just did that. But I'm bringing Golbat this week. Quite honestly, I don't really think he's going to prep super hard for it, and it happens to have a pretty good matchup against basically everything on his team. Medicham is really the only thing that can even kind of touch Golbat, really. Galvantula, even with, unless it's a Specs Thunder, is not really going to be doing a ton to this, even though I'm not Spadef. But depending on what he brings, I could just basically theoretically 6-0 his team just by stalling it out with Golbat. U-Turn, Roost, Super Fang, and Toxic are kind of standard moves for Golbat. Super Fang, if you don't know, is a 90% accurate move that just takes away half of the opponent's HP. So while I'm Toxic stalling, I could kind of just keep cutting to his HP in half so he can't actually recover out my Toxics, I guess. And because I'm Infiltrator, it means that even if he sets up a substitute or even if he tries to set up on me and just get around the set the way you normally would, I just go past substitute anyway, so it's kind of nice. Next up is Assault Vest, Intimidate, Hitmontop. This is a little bit more standard of Hitmontop than the first one I was using. I am still Max Attack Adamant because I want Rock Slide to do a lot to a defensive Moltres, because if he does bring Moltres, I expect it to be more of a defensive set. Close Combat and Mach Punch managed to hit, obviously, Excadrill and Gigalith, both of which I kind of expect to come. Mach Punch isn't I think it's a 2-hit KO, but I need to make sure that Excadrill's in range of it first, because I can't take anything in return from it. So basically, like, I'll have to weaken Excadrill to a certain point, and then Mach Punch will be able to kill. If not, I'll have to catch it on a prediction, which I don't know why he would ever switch in Excadrill on Hitmontop, I guess. And then Rapid Spin's there. I was actually debating for a while running Aerial Ace over Rapid Spin, but first of all, I'm not running Technician this week, so it's not going to do that much. Second of all, like, without Technician, it only does, like, it can do as low as like 25% to Mega Venusaur, and that was the main thing I was running it for. So I figured getting rid of rocks for Swallow and Golbat would be pretty nice, as well as just little chip damage here and there. Next up is probably the coolest set, I'd say, of the week. I'm bringing Endeavor, Quick Attack, Substitute, and Brave Bird, along with Flying in Z. I'm opting to not run Flame Orb this week because I actually wanted to run a Z move in case he is a full defensive Mega Venusaur. Z Brave Bird is almost an OHKO, and it is an OHKO if I can get a layer of spikes up and he chips in once. And then at that point, I basically just expect to substitute down, go for Endeavors or Brave Birds to kind of lower my HP and just keep lowering his HP gradually, and then if I can, just pick stuff off with Quick Attack. It's a pretty cool set, honestly. I'm pretty excited for this one because I do think it can actually do a lot of work. And because his team is naturally on the slower end outside of Sand, I'm actually able to run Adamant this week and just barely outspeed everything I need to outspeed. I think I like just barely outrun what's its face, Galvantula, and I can Brave Bird it or Quick Attack if I need to. And then finally, I needed a pivot this week that was just like a pretty safe, like, switch in, do what I need to do, get out to something safely. So I decided to run Eject Button, Mimikyu. Basically, Eject Button's not a very common item, so basically if I survive a hit, which I'm guaranteed to do if I have Disguise up, as long as he doesn't have Bold Brick or Excadrill, which I'm figuring he's not going to if he's bringing Sand. If the holder survives a hit, it immediately switches out to a chosen ally, so basically I can switch this in at any point, take a hit, and then just get a free switch out, which in Pokemon seems kind of weird, but it's basically like a Dry Baton Pass, and I actually really like Dry Baton Passing. And then outside of that, I'm running at enough speed to be able to outspeed Excadrill outside of the Sand, and then I can just Drain Punch up. If I want to burn it instead, I can do that. I went back and forth between Shadow Claw and Shadow Sneak at this, like, for the final move, but I decided to just go for damage because he doesn't actually, like... I was actually talking to him earlier in the week, so I had a little bit of, I don't want to say insight help, but I know that Miltank doesn't actually fit his current build that well, so I figured he probably wasn't going to be bringing it, so I figured I could get away with using a Ghost-type move. That's like a little bit of a benefit of me being friends with Super Nerd, but outside of that, I think all of this was just prep that I expected from stuff for him. Alright, so as you can see, he brought the Medicham, he brought the Sand Core, he brought the Milotic like I expected, he brought the Comfey, which I actually expected. I don't really think I talked about Comfey that much, but because I had Zygarde on my roster and I felt like it was kind of obvious that I would be trying to bring it, it kind of made sense to me that he would bring the one fairy priority move in the game to try to stop it, as well as probably ice coverage elsewhere. And then the Mega Venusaur is just going to be very annoying anyway, because Mega Venusaur is also it just sits here for forever. But luckily, I feel alright about these 6 because I feel like this is the 6 I expected him to bring against me. Because honestly, this 6 does very well against the team that I normally bring. Like all of my standard threats and stuff that I would expect him to prep heavily for, this 6 like can decimate at one point. But I brought a weird team this week, so we're gonna see what happens. I could get 6-0'd pretty quickly because all of my threats are like very low tier stuff. So heading into this battle, he has everything grounded. Basically, my plan almost 100% of the time was to lead Ferrothorn, unless he brought Moltres, in which case I would lead Ferrothorn and then just double into something if I needed to. But basically, since he didn't bring Moltres, everything on his team is grounded. The only hazard removal you can have on his team is Rapid Spin Excadrill, which I actually like do Iron Barbs damage to if I'm in with Ferrothorn, so it's actually kind of nice. Or Defog Comfey, I think, which again, Ferrothorn could just Gyro Ball and probably Oko. So gonna go ahead and lead that as he leads and gets his sand up. By the way, good nickname. I also like his Excadrill nickname, just throwing it out there. So since he leads Gigalith, like I can live anything he wants to go for. Worst case scenario here would be a superpower, I guess. But I want to get Alaria Spikes up just to make sure that I can Oko with Brave Bird on Mega Venusaur if I need to. He gets rocks up, which is fine. I'll at some point try to pivot into Hitmontop and just get the rocks away. But there's no reason for me not to get another layer of spikes up as he goes into Ferrothorn, or as he goes into Mega Venusaur. I'm Ferrothorn. I'm going to go ahead and try to waste another turn of sand here and just go for a Protect, even though it's a little bit obvious. I don't expect him to set up on me or anything right here, so I figure this is a pretty safe Protect. I figure he probably has HP Fire, but I just want to see, and obviously it turns out that he does have HP Fire. Here, I don't want to play super predictably in the beginning of the game, because obviously if I'm going into HP Fire, it would make sense to kind of go into Starmie and try to take that HP Fire. I start calcing stuff and realize because I'm AV Hitmontop, I'm actually able to go into AV Hitmontop pretty freely here. Like he's not going to Leech Seed, and he's not going to try to go for like a Sleep Powder or anything while I'm in with my Grass type. So I can just go into Hitmontop. I don't really expect the Intimidate to do anything, but this is mostly just try to get Rapid Spin off and force him to get rocks again. I can go ahead and live another Giga Drain, which is fine, so I'm just going to go for the Rapid Spin now. He goes into Comfey, which is fine because I have my dedicated counter to this in Golbat. There is zero universe whatsoever where Comfey can touch Golbat, because as you can see, that does absolutely nothing. So here I can either go for a Toxic, or I can go for a Super Fang, or a U-turn. Like any play will work here, because I'll either get momentum, get something Toxic, or just get 50% damage on something. I was going to go for a Toxic, predicting either Comfey to try to stay in and set up on me, or for him to just go hard into Medicham, just to try to get a little bit of chip damage on that thing, because that's kind of the biggest physical threat to my team right now. But I end up going for a Super Fang because I just figure it's the safest play overall. I get 50% damage off on anything that comes in. If he goes Excadrill right now, maybe to Rapid Spin for himself or something, I at least get chip damage on that and can pivot back into my Parathorn and continue. If he goes Mega Venusaur trying to take a Sludge Bomb or something, again, I can get 50% off on that. So he ends up going Melodic and trying to get his Flame Orb up, so I kind of wish I would have Toxic'd, but it's fine. He gets the Flame Orb up here, and I'm just going to pivot out as he presumably recovers. If he does go for a Scald, it's whatever. I can go into Starmie pretty freely here. Grass Knot is going to go ahead and hit anything on the team, or Grass Knot into Psychic is going to hit anything on the team. So I'm not going to over-predict here. I'm just going to go for it. I could go for a Scald or something also, I guess, if I want to, but... yeah, whatever, Surf. But I go for the Grass Knot, and it's a pretty easy 2-hit KO, and it's really nice because it's on his Sand Setter, so now all I have to do is stall out Sand a little bit longer, and then Excadrill is kind of neutralized. He ends up going into Excadrill here, which is nice. I'm pretty afraid of him just setting up a Swords Dance here, so I'm just going to go into my free pivot now and kind of see what he wants to do. He shows X-Scissor, which is kind of interesting because Mimikyu actually quad resists that, but since I can now go into Ferrothorn and live anything he wants to go for, again, I'm a little afraid of a Swords Dance, so I don't just want to protect and see what he wants to do here. If I was playing a little bit stallier, I could have gone for Protect here, but I decided to just Gyro Ball, because Gyro Ball is going to do about the 30% that I need it to do, so Mach Punch can guaranteed kill this thing whenever I need to. If he ends up killing Ferrothorn and takes Iron Barbs damage, that'll help out a little bit more too. He shows the Z Brick Break, I assume. I'll have to watch his side because I haven't actually checked it out yet. But it doesn't live because I'm maxed with F, which is nice. or max defense, which is nice. I here decided to stall it out because it doesn't matter. I even outspeed with Mimikyu at this point, so might as well just try to get a little bit of HP back. So now he goes into Medicham as I go into my Golbat to try to counter his Excadrill a little bit harder, because I figured he doesn't really have anything to touch Golbat with his Excadrill at this point. Unfortunately, Medicham is like the one thing on his team that actually can touch Golbat at this point. So I have to be a little bit careful here on what I end up deciding to do. I'll just double back into Ferrothorn at this point, predicting some kind, like I actually predicted the Ice Punch or a Thunder Punch or something at that point. He goes for a Psycho Cut, which is really good for him because it actually isn't Contact, which I didn't know. And he gets the crit, which is nice for him because he's able to basically take out Ferrothorn here. I'm going to use this opportunity to get a little bit more Sandstorm damage against his team because I'm not taking damage from it and he is. And I could potentially live here, but I don't because I didn't get enough HP back. But looking at that damage, it's pretty clear that I'm able to go into Starmie here freely. If you've noticed the pattern, I basically can come into Starmie at any point in this game and just kind of threaten out something. And because I'm analytic, it ends up doing a ton of damage, even though it's not like, I'm not really like super invested in it. Again, I could just go Golbat any single time he goes into Comfey. I'm going to go ahead and go for the Toxic now because I expect, I'm going to Roost first. But now that he's Calm Minding and trying to set up and stuff, I'm going to go for the Toxic. Because I'm a Poison type, it's actually 100% accurate, so I don't even have to worry about it missing and kind of screwing me over here or anything. And at this point, I could just sit in front of this thing all day if I want to. I decided to just go for the Super Fang because I predicted a switch. And I actually kind of want to rewind that turn because I accidentally talked through it. But I predicted a switch here after the Super Fang, and right here I predicted him to go for a Synthesis, just being like a standard Venusaur or whatever, because the only damage I've done to this thing is Spikes and Super Fang damage, so I haven't really gotten to like see what it wants to do yet. Like I know it has HP Fire, but that's kind of standard for anytime you're up against a Ferrothorn with a Mega Venusaur, I think. So I predict him to just go for a Synthesis here, and I figure this is a free opportunity for me to go into my Swellow. I may actually have to edit that turn to not spoil what's happening here, but I don't really care, I guess, because as I go into the Swellow, he just goes for a Sludge Bomb straight up, so that was a great prediction on his part. He told me after the battle that he was actually a mixed offensive Mega Venusaur, so I was like guaranteed to die from that for my Swellow anyway. But I predicted the Synthesis there to be able to kind of take anything that I wanted to, or take anything that he wanted to from my Swellow. I was prepared to just go for Brave Bird or Substitute Spam at that point, I guess, and then Endeavor stuff. But he made a good predict. Swellow's down, so I didn't really get to show off the cool set, unfortunately. But Starmie comes back in and just gets a kill now, which is nice. He goes back into Excadrill at this point. I actually outspeed at this point, so I could potentially just kill this thing, but I decided to play it a little bit safer and just go into Mimikyu in case he's Scarfed, I guess. At the time, I thought if he was Scarfed, he outsped, but he used the Z move, so that was just kind of me being like overly safe, I guess. I could have just surfed and killed that thing, but it is what it is, because Mimikyu gets a kill, which is nice. Spreading the love a little bit, I guess. And then he goes into Melodic, which Mimikyu can't touch at all. There's no reason for me to Will-O-Wisp because it's already burnt. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch out into Starmie because there's nothing it can really do. Grass Knot's a 2-hit KO at this point, so I might as well just go for it because even if he switches into Comfey, it's taking a ton of damage. Scald's not doing anything to me because I resist it and I'm naturally like fairly bulky. Not like bulky, but bulky enough. And then at this point, Hitmontop is more than done its job. Like, it got rid of stuff. Excadrill's dead, so it doesn't need to Mach Punch anymore, and both the things that are alive like body at 100%, so I might as well try to get an Intimidate off, even though I'm 100% certain I'm gonna die here. He goes for the Psycho Cut, which is a good play. I can just go into Starmie. I could have probably even gone into Mimikyu at that point and lived, but I went Starmie because it was safer. I forget what I go for. It doesn't really matter at this point, because anything would have killed Comfey. And then he goes back into Medicham, takes more spikes damage. I decided to play it safe in case he's going for a Thunder Punch, because Golbat can actually live 2 Adamant Scarf Thunder Punches. He ends up being banded, which he told me after the game, which is why he goes for a Bullet Punch here. But Golbat's able to pretty easily stall this out, as you can see. And I finally pick up my first win of the season. Honestly, I needed it pretty badly, because I was starting to lose confidence in this team build a little bit, but this made me feel like I actually built a pretty well synergizing team, which is nice. I definitely wanted to just kind of mix going standard with some stats and kind of mixing it up where I felt necessary this week. So it was nice that basically everything that I prepped for paid off. I didn't get to show off Reflect type, which was kind of a little bit of a bummer, honestly, because I was kind of excited about that prep. But honestly, I'll take a win 100% of the time over showing like gimmick sets that don't work. I'm a little bummed that I threw away Swallow, because I think the Endeavor set could have actually helped chip down his team a little bit quicker. But it was just a good predict on Nerd's part. I thought he was going to go for a Synthesis, because that seems like a good time to go for it if he was going to go for it. He had shown like a more defensive Mega Venusaur the first 2 weeks, so I kind of figured it was pretty likely. Turns out it wasn't. But that's just good prep on his part. So good game, Nerd. Feel free to check out his side of the battle down below. Next week we are taking on Crazy Razy, coach of the Swindon Fletchlings. They actually won the league last season, so another very hard opponent to begin the season. I don't know who the hell scheduled my first 4 games, but we gotta talk, I guess. So thank you guys for coming by. If you like this battle and want to see more, I try to do this once a week. I'll try to get back more into like regular Pokemon recording and stuff too if you guys want. But yeah, see you guys next week, I guess. Bye.